As if I started that with the mic muted. As if. Hello and welcome to Seven Scope Live, the show where indie filmmaking meets fandom, pop culture, and everything in between. I am Luke Walters, and this week we're going to have a look at the future of Doctor Who, because Doctor Who is currently in one of the strangest positions it's been in 63 years. Ncuti Gatwa apparently regenerated into Billie Piper, but Billie Piper now says she isn't the next Doctor. Mark Gatiss thinks the programme could be off air for some years. The BBC is putting it out to tender eventually. No news on that yet. Dean Devlin apparently wants the show, but he hasn't been in talks with the BBC. Chris Chibnall is obsessing over the money. And apparently David Tennant is coming back. So we're going to have a little bit of a deep dive into what the future holds for the franchise. And afterwards as well, we're going to be looking at, he's become a regular staple on the show now, and that is none other than Ali G. Every week it seems we're talking about Hollywood nostalgia. And then once again, the Ali G trailer's out. So we're going to have a look at that. And sadly, before we come on air, the news that Tim Curry has sadly passed away. So we'll be looking at the life and career of Tim Curry and the Rocky Horror Picture Show and his 35 years of T2, Terminator 2. So we'll be putting Terminator 2 under the scope. So first of all, I would like to bring in my established guest. He's been away for a while, Mr. David Millen. David.
Hello.
Hello. I feel like I haven't seen you in so long. How are you, good sir?
Yeah, very good, thanks, Luke. Been away overseas on a family holiday, which was enjoyable but interesting at the same time. And then last week I was with my daughter. We went down to the Adelphi Theatre in London to see, for the second time and my third viewing of a comedy about spies, performed brilliantly by Mischief Theatre, and it still had me laughing in tears for the third time. Absolutely brilliant performance. Just tremendous. So yeah, have you been okay in rainy Manchester?
No, it's all fine. Back in Wales for a bit. So, but first of all, Mr. Rob Peters from the Hooligans starting us off with a big Geronimo. Hello, Rob. And we'll talk a little bit more about the Hooligans a little bit later on. But first of all, second of all, going to bring in, he is back again after his win in the charity football game. It is the award-winning footballer, podcaster, series editor. He's an everythinger. He is Mr. Mainstream Media. It is Dan McGoughlin. Dan, you all right, lad?
Well, if David Tennant can appear in anything and come back all the time, so can I, mate.
Yeah, go on. So you won your charity football game?
Yeah, so it's a twice yearly thing between me and a good friend of mine. It doesn't seem like we're good friends. We keep sending each other videos and taunts online about the charity football game. She won the first one, but I won the second one, so 1-1. It's like the 14th Doctor and the Toymaker 1-1. And it will be back in 2027 for the decider.
Oh, that's exciting. That's exciting. So we're going to be talking. So it's very, I was planning the show just before we went on. I was like, oh, I've definitely made this very, very Doctor Who heavy. Jesus. So before we go and talk about what Mark Gatiss has said, what Billie Piper has said, what Dean Devlin has said, get reaction. Now, BBC still hasn't put Doctor Who out to tender as of August the 26th. Are you currently worried about the future of Doctor Who?
Me or
anyone.
is this
anyone?
Question?
This is an open question. Are you worried about it? Do you think it should have been put out to tender by now?
Dan, I'll defer to you first, if I may.
Yeah, of course. I'm not, because in many ways, I think even if the word being put out to tender is a euphemism for a hiatus or a break, it's probably what the show needed. So I don't necessarily mind that it's taking some time, because Doctor Who will exist in other forms of media. Doctor Who hasn't stopped when it comes to Big Finish. Doctor Who hasn't stopped with different bits of other media. And we've got 60 odd years of stuff to watch in the time being anyway. So I'm not worried, because, dare I say, I'm not that bothered at the moment. But obviously, the longer it goes on, the longer I'll get more anxious.
What about yourself, David?
You see, I'm slightly in the Mark Gatiss camp here. I agree with Dan. The longer it goes on, and the more we hear nothing in terms of years, then I worry, because being the veteran on this podcast and having lived through the 80s, and then the book when I was 13, it was 2 days before my birthday, my 13th birthday, the final episode of McCoy Survival went out, and we heard nothing, and it was just a case of, oh yes, Doctor Who is very much in our plans, and we look forward to taking it through the exciting 90s, and nothing really happened apart from the dimensions in time, and then excuse me, Paul McGann and the wonderful TV movie, and then it just silently went quiet. Of course it's silent, but it went even more silent than quiet. So I think what Mark said, that I completely agree with, is that it has to be missed. It has to be missed, because I think it needs a bit of time for that old nostalgia bait to grow that we seem to be in the midst of nowadays. And it needs time for people to come up with fresh ideas. And how long is too long? How long does it need to be missed for? I would say probably 3 to 4 years. And in that time, Big Finish can do what Big Finish do and fill the gaps brilliantly. And I'm sure there will be more excellent BBC novels. And I'm sure there will be other merchandise to keep the flame burning.
Oh, on that note, I think the BBC novels have been scrapped. Don't quote me on that. It's something I've heard. So yeah, so that's one I think. Don't quote me on that. I'll fact check that.
I'm sure that will be another publisher that tries to buy the license.
Yeah,
like Virgin did.
It's interesting you bring that up, because I've been reading some of the old Virgin adventures, and that's absence will make the heart grow fonder. But the longer Doctor Who's off the air, there will be people who want to fill in the gaps, trying to do something different and step away from the formula, which arguably those books did. I've just read one where the Seventh Doctor was the Don of a Japanese mafia. You probably wouldn't have got that in a traditional Doctor Who story. So it's potentially exciting that there might be some new writers or new vision coming in, because there's no set formula, because it would be off the air for so long. They're not trying to adhere to set BBC guidelines and how Doctor Who should or could be done.
No, absolutely. So yeah, Mark Gatiss has said that he thinks we're heading towards a 1989 scenario where we're going to go off into the distance and possibly have a Wilderness Years Part 2. He was saying it while he was advertising his Bookish series with the Radio Times, which Bookish is pretty good. I've seen bits of season 1, really enjoyed it. So Dan, would you be genuinely comfortable with Doctor Who disappearing for 3, 4, 5 years, or are you kind of in the camp that this is going to be a long time before we ever see a return to screen?
I think it will return to screen. Maybe it won't return to screen the way that we probably know and love Doctor Who. It won't be that Saturday night primetime drama, and it hasn't been for quite some time on BBC that you'll tune in at 7 o'clock. Doctor Who will be back in some shape or form, and will be back on TV in some shape or form. I don't necessarily mind the gap, but it's because I'm getting older, and for a 12-year-old Doctor Who fan, 1 year is a very big, massive amount of time to wait for Doctor Who. Whereas I blink and a year has gone by. So I think older fans don't necessarily mind waiting a couple of years for a new version of Doctor Who. The younger fans might be, because time is relative to them. I just don't want it to be the Wilderness Years where it's 16 years was it between 89 2005. I don't want it to be that long, but I don't mind it being 5 years, as long as the result that we get from it is something good, something different, something fresh. It feels like Doctor Who is back.
So, David, as the unmade season has just said now, Mark Gatiss is the only one speaking bluntly, because we've seen Russell coming out and saying, "Oh, Doctor Who will be back and it'll be brilliant," and Stephen Moffat has come out and be like, "Oh, Doctor Who always ends on a cliffhanger, but he survives it." But Mark Gatiss is like, "Well, no, he is speaking bluntly compared to the other two. Albeit the other two are showrunners. Mark Gatiss only, I guess, he co-showrun it with Moffat on the side, maybe." But do you think it's actually quite refreshing to see someone not essentially toe the company line and just speak honestly about this type of situation?
Yeah, I do. And I think Mark speaks for quite a lot of us more seasoned fans, shall we say, and who've seen it somewhat, who've been here before. For those of whom that have not lived through a period of time like this and have always known Doctor Who being on, then they are the ones I feel that may need more reassurance. For us, it's come round again. It's the second time around, and we're going, yeah, well, obviously it's going to be off for quite a while. It probably does need a bit of a rest. It became quite tired, and for me, there are a lot of similarities with Doctor Who, between the Colin Baker and the Sylvester McCoy years, the casting of two very controversial figures as the Doctor. Not controversial from my point of view, but it split fandom. The storylines becoming somewhat lectury or just not very good by and large. And the only difference being is that in the last two seasons, before it was taken off, there was a real upturn in quality. Unfortunately, this feels like 1985 when Michael Grade brought the guillotine down. And this feels like what would have happened if the trial of a Time Lord didn't occur and the actual axe came down then. So I really do think that Mark is speaking as somebody who's lived this journey before as a fan. And I think it's important that we just don't get the blind reassurance and that this is going to, everything's going to be all right. Yes, don't worry. I'll paint over that crack. I know it's subsidence, or subsidence, however you want to pronounce it, but it'll be all right if I just put a bit of wallpaper over it and everything's going to be fine. And Mark Gatiss is more like the building inspector going, that wall needs to come down. And you're going to have to rebuild the whole thing, and it's going to take time.
We're not going to be recording Doctor in distress, are we? To be honest with you,
no,
no.
I don't think that's going to happen. But I do think that it is refreshing to hear perhaps a more realistic point of view.
Yeah. So do you think then, so looking now compared to the Wilderness years compared to now then, do you think that helped Doctor Who, helped it explode when it come back? Because I think now that however long it takes to come back, that we'll have so many new fan creators, fan audios. Sorry, Dan, touchy subject with this one. Yeah, no, please duck. But we'll have an influx of fan creations now. We've seen there's so many good fan films or good audio dramas. There's, you got Luke Newman stuff. You got Dominic Martin. You got Queer Doctor. So do you think and back then you had BBV doing stuff. So do you think fandom will explode in this Wilderness years, and that will kind of help push Doctor Who to the next level, David?
I hope so. I sincerely hope so. But be prepared to get some things that are really good and some things that are absolute shite. Because the one thing, and that is a technical term, it's not a bad word, okay? Because that is a technical term, because as much, look, when you get fans writing for stuff, you get people like Mark Gatiss, you get people like Rob Sherman, you get Stephen Moffat, you get Gareth Roberts, you get all Paul Cornell. You also get Bob in their bedroom thinking that they can write the best Dalek adventure ever. And actually, it is probably worse than an episode of Dynasty after the mass shooting at the wedding. You know, it is worse than anything you have ever seen in your life. So you have to take the rough with the smooth. So there are some really, really good Doctor Who fan films in the 1990s, but there are some shit crazy ones as well, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, but I think that was I know a lot of good fan film creators and makers that have also gone on to work in the industry. I'm trying to toe a line here, which is very diplomatic for me.
I'm going to chip in on this because I saw that there was a response to my comments about fan films and fanfic and all that, and that's fine. And I think that that medium can work as a really good training ground for people. They can work. I remember watching some stuff when I was younger where you thought, right, this is a way that people are learning their way into film production, film writing, script writing, acting, so on and so forth. So fan fiction can work in that, and it's a good way for that next generation or current generation Doctor Who fans to eventually become the showrunners. Doesn't mean that they should be showrunners right now, frankly, but it probably does mean that they can train up and eventually get there. The one thing I worry about tremendously is not fan fiction these days. That's my mea culpa with that. It's probably the AI slop we're going to get in return. I saw something on Twitter where Trevor Baxendale showed a AI version of the final scene of Prisoner of the Daleks and loaded it as something very, very good. And it's terrible. It's woeful. And I'm worried. I'm not worried about fan fiction. I'm worried about AI slop.
It has to be cheap as well. The cheaper, the better. Because I'd much rather it be cheaper, the better, with effects that you can just go, that is dreadful, but the story is actually good. So I'd rather go with that than what Dan has mentioned about the AI slop. And I hate that term, but some of it is dreadful.
Oh, so Rob Peter, Mr. Hooligan himself, Billie, has said the quality of unofficial content will, of course, always vary. But the fact that people have the drive and the means to create it helps keep the show and the brand alive, which I fundamentally agree. You see what's, like Big Finish started off essentially as fan content to a degree. And the ultimate fan film has got to be essentially the Curse of Fatal Death, I'd say, is the ultimate fan film, because that is complete and utter. Yeah, it is licensed BBC as a comedy sketch. But it's written by Moffat. Yeah, it is. Yeah, but no, I agree.
Written by a professional writer, though, I will say.
And the thing about the Big Finish in the early days when they're recording it in their garages and stuff, it was terrible. Okay, but they got that terrible time. They got that terrible writing out of them. A lot of the ideas that they had became the first few Big Finish stories because they were honed and worked, and they got the ability to do professional recordings, and it was developed over a period of time. But some of it sounded terrible because I had some of the cassettes at the time, and I remember listening to it and thinking, blimey, this is bad, but what the element is that the people who are dedicated to it will persevere, and they will get better, hopefully, over time. So just because something may be a bit not very good doesn't mean to say it will always be not very good. It's got to allow room for people to breathe and grow and develop their skills. But as long as they're doing it, that's the most important thing.
Yeah, and I think that's where fan films come in, because obviously they do keep the show alive and it allows people to go out and just have fun and be creative. And I do know a lot of fan films are going to vary in different quality because people have expertise in different stuff. So the stuff I shoot is going to be very different from the stuff another fan filmmaker shoots. So, but there is some good stuff out there. Like right now, it is the Doctor Who and the Scorpion premiere that's happening in Cardiff as we speak. So shout out Philip Roy. If you don't know Philip Roy, he was the 7th Doctor in the 50th anniversary. He never mentions it though. He never mentions it. And on the weekend, you had the Outlander, yes, MB and Homeland, the Outlander premiere down in Cardiff as well. So you had 2 Doctor Who fan film premieres in Cardiff this week. Both very, very different, but both they look fantastic, and they look like they've had some money spent on them as well. And I definitely know Phil has. So we have Stephen O'Neill. Good evening from an overcast but dry Wigan. God, UK weather has changed quite dramatically recently, so it's quite nice. And then we've got the Unmade season in the chat as well, which I think he predominantly does do the AI stuff. Who says, I think AI video is going to have a big impact during the tender years, which is, I haven't seen that coin so far as of yet, but that's a new one. So I quite like that, especially when more experienced creators release more. Many fans love the show far too much to let it die. I don't know if you've seen one, but there is one. I think it might be in the Unmade season one. It is the Return to the Library. And it's the 14th Doctor and Donna Noble go in with Missy there on a library from the from not Planet of the Dead, from Silence in the Library. Have you seen it, Dan? David, are you aware of it?
I've seen it on TikTok. I quite enjoyed it. I quite like the bit with Missy when she's got the feet on the table and things like that. That's good for experimentation. Obviously, I know the person's in the chat, so I'll be kind. But it's good for experimentation, and it's good for fans. I've seen the reaction from fans of it, and they quite like it, and they're saying this is exactly how Doctor Who should be. There is a time and a place for AI, but there's a difference between something like that looks quite good and some decent ideas in it, and then AI slop. And I just worry. I think with the Unmade season, they've clearly put a lot of time and expertise in it, and there's original writing going into the prompts, and then there'll be AI copy and paste, like, so we get something and it just looks terrible. So it depends on people's mastery of AI. It depends if someone's going to be dedicated or just lazy.
Yeah, it's quite terrifying how far we've come in AI from a couple of years ago, where Will Smith couldn't eat a bowl of spaghetti, and now we're having very good-looking fan productions. It's actually quite terrifying. But going leaving the fandom section alone then for a while. So back to Mr. Gatiss and his comments. One of the last comments he says is the next person running Doctor Who perhaps should be somebody that grew up with David Tennant rather than Tom Baker. Is this something you agree with, David?
I don't see why not. I think that's a very good idea. But I think they should be a fan of the whole series. If they're going to be a fan of anybody. But then why do we have to have somebody that's a fan of it? Why can't we just have a really experienced writer who wants to take it to a different level? If you look at the most successful script writers on Doctor Who, or the script editors, none of them were fans of Doctor Who beforehand. One was a chap who became essentially used to write adverts, then worked on Crossroads, and took the job as an associate script editor at the end of Pat Troughton's time in Uncle Terence. Bob Holmes used to be a copper, started his time as a journalist, and then probably became the most successful script editor that Doctor Who has ever had. And then you've got Andrew Cartmel, who wasn't really a fan of Doctor Who beforehand. Essentially, but what all three of them have got in common is that they knew how to mold stories. They knew how to develop stories. They knew what stories were there for doing, and that was telling and making good stories and telling good stories. So for me, I don't think it has to be a fan at all. I think it's somebody who has to have a really good concept of how to tell a story. If they are a fan, fantastic, but it's not a prerequisite at all. It's that ability to tell stories.
Yeah, so I think looking back at the classic series, then that was, you mentioned Cartmels, when Hinchcliffe come on, all of these people that were coming onto Doctor Who at the time, they weren't like established like when Russell was kind of established when he took it over, but Moffat was, Chibnall was, but now we seem to be leaning more towards the territory. We want a showrunner, someone established to come in and take the lead. But as far as I can tell, unless you're getting, I don't know, like a Dean Devlin or Charlie Brooker or Toby Whithouse or Paul, there's no one really of that ilk. Where Doctor Who seemed to be a place where people can go cut their teeth, then move on. And now it's this big established brand where you need a big figurehead as the showrunner. But there's no one in Pete McTeague, really, kind of. But I don't think there's anyone who is there in the wings. Dan, do you get what I mean? Like
it's interesting. I think maybe that the future showrunner of Doctor Who is not necessarily someone who's going to be from a mainstream TV background. It could be someone who's come from an online background or a YouTube background potentially. It's when you look at like between Classic Who and New Who, there was very little, or if any, of the old writers who made that crossover between the classic years and New Who years. And similarly, I think what probably Doctor Who will need is none of the old writers from this run. No one who's associated with the show right now. It probably needs a clean sweep in terms of a completely new generation to take over and put their own thing. And there isn't necessarily the progression into that role because there's not a lot of progression for new writers on mainstream television. It tends to be one or the same. So that's why I think the new writers or the showrunners or the future showrunners of Doctor Who might not come from linear TV, and that could be an exciting way to do it.
So there we go. All fan film writers, get making. That's what Dan is saying. Dan is saying keep making more fan films.
I am absolutely not.
You are going to be the next showrunner.
He is a big fan.
Jed is going to clip this to death. Hi, Jed. So Mark, I agree. I think the next showrunner Doctor is a bit of there's no one out there right now where I can be like, right, cool. Maybe Jamie Mattison, he wrote a couple of good episodes, but it's so fair and far between.
Give it to Mike Gatiss.
Oh God, I don't know. No, I don't think he's wrote a single good episode of Doctor Who apart from Unquiet Dead. Sorry, Mark, if you're really good. I really like Empress of Mars. So Gatiss's message is basically don't assume another series is around the corner. But meanwhile, Billie Piper has recently come onto stage, and she has told everyone, just chill out and calm down. It'll be you when it's you. So did you see Billie Piper was speaking at the For Love of Fantasy and Sci-Fi Con down in London at the weekend, and inevitably someone asked her about what's going on with Doctor Who, even though it has been all but cancelled. And Billie Piper has said she is currently not the Doctor. She described herself as Rose Tyler in hiatus. So does Billie Piper... that's such a weird thing to say. So Rose Tyler in a hiatus. What do you think that means, David?
There are several Anglo-Saxon words I could use, but I'm not going to. God only knows what it means. I don't think anybody knows what it means. I think it's about as clear as mud on Dan's boots. From his game of football. I think it is just absolute nonsense. And we find ourselves in this predicament almost like we are tumbling through the matrix with the Valiard, not knowing what day of the week it is. I feel for Billie Piper because she has been put in an impossible position whereby she's going to be asked these questions. It's a bit like asking the England cricket captain why one of his team have gone out drinking in a nightclub when they shouldn't have been. And he's tucked up in bed 6 hours earlier, and his wife, with his wife and the 2 kids in their bedrooms, and he's expected to know why people do what they do. To be fair, I don't think she's got a clue. And she's just trying to make the best out of a really, really awkward situation that she probably hates being asked. And for just answering the phone that day, she probably wishes it had gone to voicemail. And, too late. Damn, never mind, can't help. So I think it's all just a big mess, frankly. And I feel sorry for her.
Yeah, you got to feel sorry for her at this point. So when the show inevitably comes back in, I don't know, 16 years or 20 years or 5 years or whatever it does, did you think, Dan, we should just ignore the Billie Piper regeneration and just move on, clean slate, forget about it?
Just do what he did with Christopher Eccleston when he comes waltzing in on Rose. He looks in the mirror and looks at his ears and the nose and just, I've regenerated and crack on with the new Doctor. Billie Piper is a fantastic actor. She was wonderful as Rose Tyler, brilliant in other roles, left in a really bloody awkward situation. I think her response at that Comic-Con, that convention, was basically answers on a postcard, your guess is as good as mine, which is exactly, I think, what the production was going through at the time anyway. And I don't even think there should be comics or big finishes or novels about the Billie Piper Doctor. I think it just should be I'm going through the proper TV references where JR wakes up in the shower and everything has gone back to normal.
Yeah, I don't think Big Finish can touch Billie Piper as Billie Piper's incumbent incarnation or whatever she is anyway. Rob Peters in the live chat again. I saw Rob on Sunday, so Rob said rule number 1: write the Doctor as Doctor Who. It's critical that any future team channel the mystery of the formative years as renewed by the Cartmel era stories. Do you agree with that, David?
That's why I included Cartmel in my list of previous excellent script editors. It had become too continuity heavy, hence my references back to the Colin Baker times before. It had become too continuity heavy. There was we knew virtually as much as we could do about the Doctor, how many times they could regenerate, what Gallifrey was, and all this, that, and the other. And then Cartmel just went, we need to bring back the mystery of the character because it's called Doctor Who, for goodness sake. So we should concentrate on the Who, and we should make this character into sort of a bit of a git, really. He was a right git in the last 2 seasons. He was not very nice. And the amount of nastiness he put Ace through in the last season, why would you want to travel with this person? You know, do you know what? I really hate clowns. Right, okay, I'll take you to a circus. Do you know what? I really hate haunted houses. Here's this haunted house that you burnt down. Right, okay. I really hate my mum. Right, okay. Here's your mum as a baby. And in between that also, I'm going to say that I don't like you and make you feel horrendous and basically just dismiss you like, I'm doing that. He was a git. No, let's have more of that, please. Let's have this character thing. Who the hell is this person that they're traveling together? And he comes across as quite a nice bloke, but actually is a right git. You know, that's
Clara. Am I a good man?
Yeah. So As again, Rob Peters, they're not a god. They're not your best mate from a few doors down. They're certainly not your love interest. They're an enigma. They have secrets. We look up to them, but we're not always sure why. I think he's talking about John Carley there. I'm not sure. But yeah, do you agree with shout out John Carley, love you. Do you agree with this characterization, Dan? Is this something you want from your Doctor?
It's the bits where they turn Doctor Who into Space Jesus is where I just turn off.
Yeah, totally. He's not Jesus.
I watched Voyage of the Damned the other day as well, and that bit where he's getting sending with the angels. I just cracked up. I forgot how, like, when you're a kid watching it, you're like, oh, that's cool. When you're watching it back, you're like, oh, wow, on Christmas he is ascending. It's a bit.
The Doctor Who's got to that mysterious man who pops in and pops out again. It's the show has got to be about the story where the Doctor just enters the story and pops in to the story. The story goes on and the Doctor enters and the Doctor exits. He's got to be mysterious as well as a companion as well. But yeah, definitely not Space Jesus. Definitely not the person that created all of time and space, and definitely not. I'm just fed up of this god complex that they've given the Doctor. He is an alien who gets things wrong, so he can be a bit like David said, it can be Space Git, not Space Jesus.
Yeah, and Stephen O'Neill in the live chat then says we should forget the last 8 years of Doctor Who since Capaldi left. I vehemently disagree with this.
We can't forget it. It's happened. We can't forget.
As much as people don't like it, I completely disagree with this. And Capaldi would never do it anyway. So
no, but the thing is, Luke, it's like asking to forget the twin dilemma. It's like asking to forget the Borat and Time Lash. It's like asking to forget Time and the Rani, and Paradise Towers, and the Happiness Patrol, and the whole of season 24. To be fair, it's like asking to forget that. We can't forget that. We have to live with it because it's happened. We don't have to like it. We can like it if you want to, but we don't have to like it. And that is the thing. And I made a mistake the other week by saying the Doctor was, I shouldn't do that because he's our hero. And Brandon quite rightly corrected me. What I should have said, because I've had time to think about it, is that the Doctor is an anti-hero. He or she has not set out to be that heroic Space Jesus figure. And that is wrong to portray the character as that. It's the bit of a git role, actually. You know, somebody who could, and to borrow from Colin Baker's time, somebody who could, call over 1,000 dead people, but cry at the death of a butterfly. It's that sort of, my God, you're not human, are you? You're right, I'm not human. So why should I react in a human way? And it's that sort of, oh, I'm not sure about this character, but I kind of want to keep watching because I want to know how it goes on. But we can't forget the past. The past has happened.
I can I just add as well is I don't like this argument. It was good and then Capaldi, then it's been terrible ever since. There have been some wonderful moments of Doctor Who since then. There's been some really good stories out there. There's been moments of magic, and my argument is there's never been a bad Doctor Who. You know, there was some good moments from Shooters, some really good moments from Geordie, and just to sort of dismiss it, I think, is slightly wrong. You don't have to like it all because every generation has a different Doctor and a different way of doing it. But like you said, David, we can't forget stuff even if we don't like it. It is the story of Doctor Who, which is muddled and messy, good, bad, mediocre, wacky, serious. The whole point of it is this show is a mess, but it's our mess.
I think you brought up something when we were talking the other day, Dan, and you kind of, it can apply to this as well. When we were talking about nostalgia in Hollywood, and you were saying we're the Peter Pan generation, we're bringing things from our childhood now and trying to make them fit, and they don't quite fit. And I think that can apply to Doctor Who as well, where you have the older generation now are looking at the show, and it's not for them, kind of. Even though Doctor Who is family orientated, but it's Yeah, I think what you said could apply to this as well. I'm not discounting everyone's opinion matters, obviously, with Doctor Who, but it's for everyone. But yeah, no, if things change and evolve and stuff, and you're not gonna I don't like stuff from when I was 6. I'm not going around still liking Thomas the Tank Engine. Maybe I love Power Rangers. Power Rangers is sick. So, but no, I get what you mean. Yeah, what you said about being in the Peter Pan generation is I completely agree. But yeah, Mark Gatiss is being slightly pessimistic with Doctor Who currently as it is. Billie Piper's being quite optimistic, saying it'll come soon. Just chill out. So they're kind of on the same line anyway, but they don't decide. The BBC decides, and currently the TARDIS is traveling down the vortex at a speed. It's currently not out for tender yet, as I keep saying, August the 26th. It's not coming out for tender yet. But if you're the BBC now and the production company was pitching to you, what would you be looking for this production company for the next iteration of Doctor Who, Dan?
Answers on the postcard. I don't know. I complain about stuff and have no real answers, Luke. I point the finger and shout at things. That's what I do. But what
old man shouting at the cloud type of vibe.
Old man yelling at the cloud.
Yeah,
yes.
love it.
I'm a millennial. I'll just blame the previous generation for all the societal wrongs. But no, what I'm looking for, I'm looking for an original take that has the fundamentals of Doctor Who, which is madman in a box or madwoman in a box that crashes in on an adventure, that is comedy, sci-fi, history, drama, farce, and just originality, something different, something that winks at the past and enjoys the past, but isn't beholden to it completely.
Yeah, no, I agree. David, in your opinion, if you were the BBC now and you were put in the out to tender, what would you be looking for a production company? Would you want showrunner already attached? Would you want 8, 13 episodes? Do you want to run? Do you want to go back to series? What would you be looking for?
I'd want to go back to 25-minute episodes. I want to go back to multiple parts for a story. I would want the character to be a Time Lord on the run from his own people in a rackety old TARDIS. To quote Tegan Jovanka, and then being furious about it. And I just want historical, dramatic, funny, serious,
sexy.
Sexiness helps, because if you get someone like me or a couple of warthogs in there, people might not want to watch it.
It's a Christmas Invasion quote. That.
I love the reference.
Thank you. Thank you.
I did get it, but I wanted to keep my.
I'm so sorry.
Keep my style, but I think it needs to be sex. There needs to be some sort of sexiness to it, whether it be the graphics. People obviously, if you're going to cast the Elephant Man as the Doctor, it might not work. To be fair. They might say, "I'm sorry, John," but which is an Alan Partridge quote as well. I'm sorry, John, but you're not for us. But yeah, it does have to be pacey, but not too pacey. It has to have time for the stories to breathe. It has to have time for the characters to grow. It has to be well told. It should not lecture. It should educate, which is a big difference between the two. But people get them confused at times.
Yeah,
and it should be a Doctor with one companion.
Yeah,
not
I think
2.
Yeah,
or
I
3.
think, yeah. I think you're so in Jodie's era that doesn't work now per se. The one companion is better. I don't mind the 2. I think that's fine to a degree, but one is ample. So earlier this year, then Mark Gatiss. This is just the Mark Gatiss slamming show. This Jesus, Mark Gatiss. Do you think he was right when he said Doctor Who works precisely because it isn't Star Wars? So for the next iteration of Doctor Who, then, do you think it should have the level of the Disney money so it can visually compete with Disney and Marvel and Star Wars? Or do you think it should go back to being British? Bear in mind, it's got to be sold internationally, so it's got to have some kind of sexiness to it, as David mentioned, Dan.
I think I've said this before, is that I think Doctor Who does well under pressure. The best stories from Doctor Who goes when it's going against tight budgets or no budgets whatsoever. You know, if it wasn't for a tight budget or no budget, we wouldn't have Blink, which is probably one of the best episodes of New Who. So I think Doctor Who works when it's going. If you try to be Star Wars or Star Trek, or if you try to be the Avengers Tower, as we saw in the most recent run of Doctor Who, it doesn't feel like Doctor Who. I want the walls and the sets to wobble slightly. I want it to look a little bit cheaper, but that doesn't mean you are having cheap storytelling. In terms of whether it should be American or not, the Doctor probably should be British. Doesn't mean that every aspect of it has to be, but I think the Britishness of Doctor Who is what sells it across the world. That British eccentricity and charm is what makes it successful to Americans, in the same way that we might watch things like The West Wing or whatever, because we're getting a glimpse of that culture, even though I'm comparing a high stakes political drama with sci-fi Doctor Who. But it's the charm of it, its USP is eccentric Britishness, but not everything has to be totally British about it. But it's got to be done under pressure. It's a bit like diamonds, you know, the best diamonds come from under pressure.
So speaking of Americans then, because somebody who's been getting an awful lot of attention recently in connection to the Doctor Who tender is Mr. Dean Devlin. We spoke about this a little bit ago, Dan, but now there's been some kind of confirmation that Dean Devlin, he told Radio Times that there's been no negotiations with the BBC preliminarily. That's a struggle for me to say that. I'm finding there's certain words I struggle with. Preliminary or otherwise, which is important because the tender isn't even out yet. But what he has said is that when the BBC is ready to speak to potential partners, Electric Entertainment hopes to be part of that conversation. So people hear Dean Devlin and think, you know, Independence Day, Leverage, the Librarians, the Next Chapter arc. Is the Librarians arguably evidence that Devlin understands accessible, slightly pulpy adventure television? And what did you think he would be a good fit for Doctor Who, David?
No, I don't. I think he's had his time. And Doctor Who needs to be with a fresh pair of eyes, somebody younger, somebody more willing to take risks, somebody who not necessarily has got a fantastic pedigree of work. I think it needs to somebody who's got a lot of energy, somebody who's got a lot of passion, somebody who wants to prove themselves, somebody who sees it as something to launch their career. We often talk about that as a sort of actor to play the role of the lead character, but I think also it should be somebody of that nature to be I don't like to use showrunner because I think it's an overused and quite a poor term, to be fair. But as the lead writer, script editor, you can have an experienced producer. You can have, you can't have an experienced producer. Look at Verity Lambert; she wasn't experienced at all when she came on to start the show. I think it needs to be a young team that are willing to take risks and to drive it forward as something new and exciting and different.
So speaking of different then, the rumours were going around that he's apparently spoke to, for his initial tender pitch, he was going to bring back this guy, Mr. David Tennant. Again, we have spoken about this. There we go. So do you think this would be a good idea to bring him 14th back for what seems to be an age? I know he's back in the Big Finish now, but he's playing 10 and he's travelling with Rani, Sarah Jane, who was part of Sarah Jane Adventures. But if Dean Devlin did somehow get it, would you want David Tennant to come back with him as that's been put in the press, Dan?
I love Tennant. Tennant was fantastic 10th Doctor. It was good to get him back for the 60th, the 50th first, obviously, and then 60th. But then it's just diminishing returns from that point forward. And every time we do nostalgia baits, it is diminishing returns. It's not going to be good and fresh as the first time. If you want a whole new generation to fall in love with Doctor Who, you've got to have a whole new generation. That includes showrunner, actor, production team. Everything about it's got to be younger rather than keep looking back. And, I'm sure Tennant remembers the days of being a young actor who wants to play Doctor Who. Give someone else a chance, David. You are spectacular. You're one of my favourite actors in the world, but I think now is time to hang up the overcoat and skinny suits and Converse, and you can do your big finishes, that they're great, but it's time to let that younger generation of actor, whomever it may be, take on the role. We just need to cut the umbilical cord of nostalgia with Doctor Who.
So while everyone's discussing Dean Devlin, Tennant, Mark Gatiss, Billie Piper, who might run it, Pete McTeague, Chris Chibnall has come out and has made what might be the most important bit, a point of information, and it kind of just seems to get swept under the rug. And he thinks that the BBC hasn't put out a tender yet just because of one thing, and that's money. His argument is that the BBC does want Doctor Who, and the problem is making drama at this scale is increasingly expensive. The BBC is under enormous financial pressure, and the end of the Disney co-production relationship has left a funding gap that has to be filled. His point is essentially before anybody can properly bid to make show, they need to answer some extremely boring but fundamental questions. What's the budget? How many episodes? Where's the money coming from? So are we all discussing Doctor Who's creative problems when his biggest problem might be simply that the BBC can't afford currently to make Doctor Who, David?
It can, if the right bidder wins. If BBC Studios wins, it's a commercial entity in its own, and it makes a lot of money. So you have BBC drama as it used to be in 1987 could not afford to make Doctor Who. BBC Studios, who own interests in lots of other companies, and also get money because it is a commercial entity, and you've got BBC Worldwide behind it as well, who sell lots of things, could afford to make it because they would make the money back on it by flogging it. Okay, because a lot of people would buy it again. So Chris Chibnall is right in one way, in the fact that if the BBC made it as the BBC, they wouldn't be able to afford it. But if it went to one of the BBC's commercial entities, they would be able to make it. So it's a bit of a misnomer. And just like if it went to Netflix, Netflix would be able to make it because of their commercial entity. So it's a bit of a rabbit hole, if you see what I'm talking about. And to be fair, it's a rabbit hole we don't need to go down to, because if a commercial entity bids for it and wins it, they will have the cash. End of.
Yeah, that's no, I agree. But I think with the commercial entity, the BBC retains every bit of right ever, all the IPs. So it's going to be, I think it's the BBC are potentially going to have to maybe give up something if they want a lot of money.
Be a bit of negotiation.
Yeah, I think so.
There's also the argument as well is that, Doctor Who reduced its episode count over the years. So the commercial arm of the BBC's had less episodes to sell. So maybe part of it is making more episodes to sell more episodes. And the way that drama has been made on the BBC for years has been through these production companies or independent companies. You saw that with the Phil Pullman series. That was a bad
His Materials.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
it's the BBC's been making drama that way for a while anyway. Well, they've not. They've had others come into the process.
So, but maybe all of this is based on one assumption that actually isn't true. When Doctor Who isn't on BBC One, we describe Doctor Who as though it's gone. But has Doctor Who ever really gone? Big Finish has spent decades proving that new Doctor Who stories don't require a television camera. They've returned old Doctors, expanded companions, finished unfinished stories, created entire eras that television never gave characters to. And that's for a certain section of fandom. Big Finish isn't secondary Doctor Who anymore. It is Doctor Who. So the main question is, does Doctor Who actually need to remain on television anymore? Or can it just survive through audio? And that's open.
Some of the best bits of Doctor Who have not necessarily been on television. I think something like Spare Parts is the ultimate Doctor Who story, the Cybermen story. It's chilling, it's heartbreaking, it's beautiful, it's horrifying, and it's an audio drama. So yes, of course it can, and Big Finish have delivered on those. They've had some stinkers along the way, but they've had a lot to do. So yes, Doctor Who can and will survive on other mediums, and other mediums sometimes the stories are far better than they have been on television.
Yeah, so I've recently got more into Big Finish because I hang out more with John Carley, and it'd be rude for me not to listen to his audios, and he's the War Doctor. But he's brilliant. But I've listened to it a lot more now, and some of the stories are fantastic. They're absolutely fantastic. But when you look at the reaction online compared to what we get on screen, Big Finish seems to get more hits than misses when it comes to Doctor Who at this point. So why do you think that is, David? Do you think it is because there is a slew of fans writing it, and because Doctor Who is unusually suited to audio because it allows you to have that imagination to go with it, or do you think this is just a term of it's just better writers? Yes, it's a strange one, that.
Oh, it's a combination. If you look at my favourite master story of all of Doctor Who, it's the Big Finish one called Master.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Written by Joseph Lidster, who is an amazing, amazing writer.
Big up, Joe. I haven't seen him in a while.
And it is a brilliant Doctor Who story. It is full of darkness, claustrophobia, impending doom, yet the beautiful range that Geoffrey Beevers plays of Dr. John Smith, going from hopeful, going from nice, and then it all turns when the Doctor arrives. You've got Philip Maddock playing a typical pompous Doctor as well. It is just so layered on so many different levels that you are there, you are sat round that dinner table, you are in that house, and yet you cannot see anything, but you can feel everything about it. Spare Parts, Chimes of Midnight, those sort of stories are just well told, beautifully written, wonderfully acted, and are some of the, as Dan said, some of the best. So Big Finish slightly annoy me in a way because they produce far too much, which can sometimes mean that the quality isn't as what it used to be when they were just concentrating on one a month. And I understand businesses need to diversify. I understand the need to broaden ranges in order to survive. It's not a criticism, but there's normally a trade-off that goes with that. But I don't see why a Big Finish can't use this as a springboard to do some excellent stories that haven't yet been told. And because it's audio, you can do anything. You can do anything with audio because you don't have to build those really expensive sets. You can do it on a soundscape, and it's amazing. And I love Big Finish, and you know, I think without Big Finish, I think sadly Colin Baker's Doctor would not have had a really good sort of history that he has had since Big Finish came in, and completely changed my view on the Sixth Doctor.
I agree, and I know Brandon's not on the pod this time, which he would be kicking himself about if I'm talking about this, because his favorite Doctor, albeit it's not Tom Baker, and he got enough slack for that when that went out. Brandon is a massive Big Finish fan, and his favorite Doctor is Colin Baker. So before anyone starts saying, "Oh, it's Shooty and Jodie," no, it is Colin Baker, and it's through the Big Finish audios because they flesh it out and give it time to develop the character. But you look at like what they've done with Paul McGann's Doctor as well, and how they go on, Dan.
I was just going to say what they've done for Paul McGann, like Dark Eyes and series like that.
Oh yeah,
and even Stranded. I love the Stranded series. Paul McGann's Doctor has been wonderful, and one of my favourite companions is probably Sheridan Smith's character in the Paul McGann audio dramas, because that is where it does feel fresh. That's where it feels new and exciting. And even they're still hitting those bangers now with Paul McGann's Doctor, and also stuff like with the War Doctor, and Derek Jacobi as the War Master. They are brilliant. I mean, when you've got Jacobi, you're not really going to go wrong, but they're just absolutely superb bits of writing and voice acting.
Yeah, highly recommend this one as well, Fear of the Light. With the Rani, it's incredible. They got the Rani spot on. It's everything we wanted from season 2. It is just a fantastic. And He Who Fights with Monsters is possibly one of the best bits of Doctor Who media I've ever consumed in my life. I think it's an incredible story, and anyone, if you're listening, go watch it. I think it's one of the best Doctor Who stories ever put out on media, any form. It's just incredible. So looking at this then, so obviously they've done Unbound Doctors. They've recast Doctors. They've got voice actors coming in. You've got like John Hurt, Miles Taylor doing Matt Smith, and now you've got Mr. Culshaw doing Peter Capaldi then. And obviously, maybe, who knows, down the run, licenses and issues, they could pick up Billie Piper and Shooty, who knows. But do you think then Big Finish can create the next generation of Doctor Who fans, David?
I don't see why not. I don't see why not at all. I think a lot of people who still want to be involved with the series will go searching. And the one thing that I will suggest is that they may be put off by some of the prices that Big Finish charge. But that's not to say that there won't be special offers. There won't be marketing efforts to get people into it. And I still dip in and out of Big Finish. And it's very much story by story basis. And I can't see why it has to have a diminishing fan base. If they appeal to people and say, "Hello, we're here if you need us, and here's a special introductory rate for new fans," then why not? Why not? And I have to say that if Big Finish, and this is my honest feeling, is that if Big Finish didn't come in 1999, after they had that trial year with the BBC Bernie Summerfield license, I do feel that we wouldn't have got it back on TV. I do feel that they are largely responsible for keeping the brand alive with the excellent material that they did. Yeah, some of it's hit and miss. Some of it will always be hit and miss. But there are more hits and misses. And I do feel that this will do the same, and maybe even hurry it back onto air if the take-up is good enough.
So audio then can bring an actor back 30 years after they've been on screen, and they don't have to explain them aging up, or we don't have to time differentials, or we don't have to make them the curator. So do you think Big Finish is actually better equipped to preserve Doctor Who's history than the current show, Dan? Well, there is no current show, but do you think it's better than the televised whatever we get?
Look, there's been nice bits where they've tried to bring back old Doctors. I think actually the Power of the Doctor did the nice thing with the bridge, the gateway thing with the old Doctors. That's a nice thing. But I think it's what Stephen Moffat said. You don't want to be getting the old Doctors trying to squeeze it back into the uniforms or costumes again after so many years. And audio is such a powerful way of doing it. Look, I work in podcasts. I'm always going to defend audio. It is the ultimate form of storytelling, Luke. Come on, you filmmakers, you. But it is a really good way to preserve the history. You can have... This is why Big Finish can work, because you can have your nostalgia stuff, which is your classic Doctor Who's and linking companions with old Doctors, or new companions with old Doctors with new companions. But I think there's also the bit where that they are creating new original Doctor Who as well. That's exciting. I like the idea of the Unbound Doctor and the Unbound Master. I'd like to see a bit more of Big Finish. I'd love to see a brand new Doctor for a Big Finish. I don't think the BBC probably would let that happen. But I think they can serve many audiences Big Finish, the nostalgia thing, the new audiences with new originality that perhaps the TV show can't do within how many episodes it gets.
So do you think then Doctor Who needs television to remain part of mainstream British culture now, even though it's ingrained for the past 60 years, David? Do you think it still needs a presence, or can it survive and still be mainstream just through audios, books, merch?
Yes, because it's done it before. And in 1990 through to probably about 1997, we didn't really have the thing called the internet. And we didn't have certain things called TikTok or YouTube or social media. And that really came online with YouTube in 2005. And then it sort of exploded over the next 20 years. So as long as it's always got a presence, as long as the algorithm always looks on it favorably, as long as it can advertise and promote new stories or new exciting stories or fresh drama around the role, then it can survive. And it, as I said before, it might even help accelerate its return onto the I say the mainstream, as in the TV or whatever that becomes in the future. I think you know, or people think radio plays and audio plays are a thing of the past. They've been saying that they're going to be a thing of the past for decades. But look at the explosion of podcasts. Look at the explosion. Everybody's doing a podcast now. You know, every celebrity. You know, no, I don't mean you. But every celebrity is doing a podcast. Every sports person's doing a podcast. Every person, you know, wants to be able to listen on the go. So it's an open market for Doctor Who if it or the audio stories if it wishes to exploit it.
So if Doctor Who doesn't need television to survive, then what does television uniquely give Doctor Who that big finish never can, Dan?
Oh, that's a good question.
Yeah.
I suppose it would be. I'm looking at it from a traditionalist point of view where the whole family would go and watch it 7:00 on a Saturday. All generations, it'd be the show's the thing, and you're all sitting around watching it, and they all sort of slightly old claptrap about you've got the cool character, the eye candy for the dads, and the sci-fi for the nerds and all that. I think television is a unifier because it was the water cooling, moment where you don't talk about it being on 7:00 on a Saturday. When you've got multiple screens, it's a bit different because we're all watching slightly different things. I think Doctor Who will and can survive on TV and should do. I just think it will be propped up by the other media. The TV show is I'm getting into work mode, but the hero content, and then the other media is the thing that supports it. And television's a unifier. Television is a lot of people at the same time watching the same thing, and you talk about the same thing. And it will be back on television. I just hope in a different, exciting, new, original way.
Nice. And on that note, we're just going to take a short little break. We're going to go join the hooligans. Why not?
No! You asked for my help.
Yeah, more as a sounding board. Not so you could rewrite the ending and ruin it.
What are you doing dressed like that?
I'm working.
Hiya, fam.
So, you're my replacement. A dandy and a clown.
Dear Auntie Babe, thank you for Doctor Who this year. How about a season 14 marathon? I'm talking Robots of Death, Talons of Wing Chang, Deadly Assassin. Oh, love Gallifreyan stories. Proper classic Who, Tom at his finest.
Doctor Who? Nah, I've not watched since David Tennant.
We open with the TARDIS.
Oi! Stop what you're doing and state your name and planet of origin.
Hi.
Do we know what we're looking for, Doctor? I don't really fancy walking up and down these corridors all day.
Seriously, that was like the worst episode of Doctor Who ever, and I've seen Twin Dilemma.
We were on the verge of discovering something huge there.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry for overreacting. I'm sorry for being moody. I'm sorry that I'm no longer fun. I'm sorry I don't like the Rings of Akaten. I haven't eaten, so nothing too strong. Don't want to get drunk.
I really think he might.
Where is he?
Where is he indeed? Shh.
Dalek!
You will be exterminated! Exterminate!
Okay then. Geronimo!
Hello and welcome back to Sound and Scope Live. That was The Hooligans, the entire series, and the feature, The Lost Fandom, is available on the YouTube channel currently. But that is not all. The Hooligans are returning, actually, for the Christmas special next week. How is that? David, have you heard the news that the Hooligans are back for a Christmas special? The Wilderness Year. But we're coming back in September, which is very odd.
So Christmas is now in September. That's what I like to hear. I better get shopping.
So here we go, Dan. The Hooligans are back for the Wilderness year. We can announce it now. So we will be screening at Hooverville next week in Derby. The film currently does not exist, but it will by next week in some sort. We'll see. This is going to be my bank holiday. This is going to be my bank holiday Monday job. But it's not only. Yeah, it's basically it's just my weekend gig. But that is not all. The Hooligans are being joined by none other than the We Sound Familiar crew: Elliot, Peter, Mr. Carly, the War Doctor himself, and Elliot, Chris, and Elliot. They're all there. And we are seeing their film, the new film, The Final Broadcast, again, shot with myself. And that is screening as well at Hooverville. So we're doing a double bill. It's going to be We Sound Like Hooligans at this point. So I think we're on a 3:25 on the Saturday. So I think we're up against Pete McTeague. So come watch us. We've probably made as much Doctor as he has at this point. Thanks to Steve and Andrew and everyone at Hooverville for having us, and we will see you there. We'll be doing a Q&A with Chris, Peter, John, Elliot, and then Rob, Brandon, Ellie, and James Dorman, who plays Stephen in Hooligans, making a return. So that's enough of me plugging my own stuff. I should have shown it.
It's the McBusted of the Doctor Who world.
Yeah, well, there's no Doctor Who and We Sound Familiar. So because of a certain someone and those licensing laws means we're not allowed to touch it. So we skirt around it very nicely. I am, of course, talking about Chris Walker-Thompson. I would show a trailer, but there was a different trailer has come out recently. I don't know if you guys have seen it. We have touched on it. He seems to be on the show more than me at this point, and it is none other than Ali G, Who Is I? The trailer dropped. I know it seems to be we're going around in circles with this, trying to do a indie filmmaker fandom pop culture podcast, and it's the same topics popping up every week. But the trailer has finally dropped. Dan, have you seen it?
Nope, and I have no appetite to do so, mate. As much as you're trying to repeat it and get it out there, I told you we're the Peter Pan generation, and you are clearly repeating this again and again and again. We're stuck in a time loop. Get me out of here.
I'm Ali G. Get me out of here. David, have you seen the trailer for Ali G?
No, and I don't want to. I was going to. I was stuck for words there. Look, Ali G was right when he first came out, or when the character first came out. I was 22, and I'm going to be 50 later this year. And to be quite honest, I'm bored. I'm bored of a character that was funny on the 11 o'clock show for the first couple of series, and then that was it. I'm more of a fan of Borat, because I just find it funnier. I just think the character of Ali G was very much of its time. I didn't like the film. I thought it was just bad. And unlike other characters, like, for example, my hero, Alan Partridge, Alan evolves, but he doesn't revolve. And what they've done with, if they showed Ali G evolving, then fair enough. But I don't think the character should be stuck in that sort of late 90s world, which is not relevant anymore. I don't think Ali G is relevant anymore. Borat, you can evolve, and other characters you can't. And I don't think Ali G is one of those characters that you can. And quite frankly, I think it's just an excuse to engage nostalgia bait and rinse us all of a few quid, if I may say so.
So
I won't be spending anything on it.
So yeah, no. To be fair, I probably will. I went to see Scary Movie 6, but I'm one of those. But But so they've changed it then. So it doesn't seem to be a sequel to the film. They kind of changed it and moved it into a Borat style documentary film. Yeah, so they've evolved it. So by that pretense, David, you should go.
But that's what Ali G was at the start.
Essentially, they're recreating the old Channel 4 style show now.
But that's not evolution. It's basically sticking at the same. It's going back to your original concept. So it's basically regurgitation, not evolving. It's regurgitation. It's regurgitory, not evolutionary.
What we should be doing is, that culture that was around at Channel 4 at the time, where you had your Ali G's and your Borats, and you had, other comedians come through, whether it's Peter Kay doing the Peter Kay thing, or even Ricky Gervais doing the the morning show, or like even your Simon Peggs and Spaced and all that. You need that culture of helping nurture the new generation of comedians rather than just getting the older ones and giving them the airtime or the time in the cinema, because I feel like we're just at the point of just churning out the same old crap and not allowing the space of the platforms for the new generation. They're all going on bloody Saturday Night Live UK, not Channel 4.
Exactly, and to me, it's no different from Roy Chubby Brown having an act that was out of date in the 1970s, still doing the same act in 2026. If people want to go and pay to see Roy Chubby Brown, fill your boots. Royston, continue to do your shows. You have a right to do them. I won't be going to watch them, but if you can fill places to do these shows, fair enough. But you've got to give. At some point, you have to be overtaken by the next generation. And the next generation of comedy might not be funny for us. It might not be funny for me, but it might be more relevant to those people growing up as the young ones, and Ben Elton and Fry and Laurie and Father Ted and you name it. Alan Partridge were to me. Okay. But this is, as I said, it's regurgitory, not evolutionary. And, I think it's money for old rope.
What you've got for this sort of thing is, the natural progression of creative talent is you get a new wave sweeping in and then it sweeps back out and a new wave follows. When you're getting someone like Ali G coming back, they're just building a sea wall. It's not a new wave.
So down the rest of the coast, they're getting washed away, but he's all right behind his wall.
Yeah.
So I'm going to ask. No, I'm not going to ask you. So Dan, how do I see you've met my faithful handyman? Yeah. So some sad news just before we went on the air. That is the legendary Tim Curry has sadly passed away at the age of 80, and I think Tim Curry is one of those performers where you just need about 3 seconds before you exactly know who you're watching, and rather than spend the next 50 minutes doing a somber obituary. Okay, I love Tim Curry. I was so sad when I found out. I was absolutely gutted. We had Dolly Parton yesterday, Tim Curry today, and Bonnie Tyler. It's been a mad year, Catherine. Yeah, it's been a mad year. But rather than spend 50 minutes just doing a somber obituary, I thought we'd talk about how bloody brilliant he was, because he was. And obviously, you can't talk about him without talking about Dr. Frankenfurt. But there's also, Pennywise, Wadsworth, Darkness, Long John Silver.
Oh, scares the bejesus out of me.
Oh. So when I say Tim Curry, then, what performance immediately enters your head, David?
I think you've already gathered that horrendous, horrible, scarring for life clown. What a performance. What a performance to be able to scare the bejesus in a TV movie, a made-for-TV movie, low budget, everything like that, not feature film. He pops up and my God, I cannot watch that film. It's worse than The Shining. Okay, for me, The Shining is literally something I cannot watch because it scares the living hell out of me. Pennywise and his version of Pennywise is above that. Okay, a brilliant performance to get that amount of fear out of so many people in a made-for-TV movie, because you can see it's a made-for-TV movie, because when you see who the real it is, it doesn't become scary anymore. It becomes very funny. And the monster is just sort of like, oh, is that what I was scared of? You know, keep the clown. For God's sake, keep the clown. You know, that performance was just, it was beyond scenery chewing, but it was immense. And to me, Tim Curry always puts a shiver down my spine for that role. What an amazing actor. I have never been scared so much by any other actor on screen playing any other part.
Yeah,
and that is one hell of a skill.
And Stephen O'Neill just reminded me as well that Welsh Rugby League legend Billy Boston has also passed away as well at the age of 92. As if I forgot a Welsh rugby death as well. I'm so sorry. Billy Boston's a legend, dual code rugby player, but more of a league player as well. So thoughts and prayers for his family and everyone affected by that. But what a legend he was, especially up the north.
And Kevin Keegan.
Yeah. So it's been a outrageous year. But Dan, so I asked you, have you seen Rocky Horror? Because Tim Curry to me is Dr. Frankenfurt is possibly the greatest casting of all time. I don't think I've ever seen anything like it. But do you think anyone else could have played Dr. Frankenfurt? We've seen like even Luke Evans is playing him right now on the weekend. But do you think anyone else has a grasp of it as much as Tim Curry does?
Certainly not at the time, and I don't think ever since. I think actually probably the closest was Anthony Heads, who we also lost recently. But I think just that performance from Tim Curry, I think I messaged you before. I'm saying that Rocky Horror is probably my karaoke choice when I get enough drink in me. But I think that performance is just, he is subversive and he is a symbol for the subversives out there. This is why Rocky Horror became that cult film and got that following, because he became the leader-in-chief, the commander-in-chief of the subversives. He is mischievous, charismatic, sexy, edgy. He's got that dangerous glint in the eye, that Cheshire cat grin that he's got. He's just... You never quite know where he's going to go, and that's excited to see an actor like that. You are on the edge of the seat watching the performance like him. And I think something like Rocky Horror is obviously the ultimate performance, but even something like The Muppets.
Yes.
I saw something where they said when Michael Caine was in The Muppets, he was playing it straight with The Muppets. When Tim Curry was in The Muppets, he was playing it as a Muppet. And I can see that.
No, I agree. So his entrance then for Sweet Transvestite, do you think it's one of the greatest entrances in cinema history? As soon as he comes through the lift doors with the cape, Dan.
He's just magnetic. You can't keep your eyes off him, and that's not necessarily just the costume. Which, he can turn any straight man, I think, because he's just stunning in that. But it's all in the eyes, and there's an edge and the mystery. There's something electric and magnetic about it, and it is probably one of the greatest entrances in film. And it's only something he could have done. There's very few actors who've just got that je ne sais quoi. You know, that you can't quite define it because it's him. There is just something, or was something about him.
So he's a big part then in Rocky Horror, obviously becoming this absolutely worldwide phenomenon, David. But when you look at cult films now, Rocky Horror is either 1A or 1B at this point. So do you think then Rocky Horror has become the definitive cult movie of all time at this point?
It's certainly up there. It's certainly up there with Nell and I and the Python films, that the more culty. and it was certainly of its time. I've never seen it, I have to be honest, although I do own the 7-inch single of Damien's The Time Warp from 1989, which obviously is featured heavily in the Rocky Horror Show. Give that one a miss. Don't go on Discogs and buy it, is my advice. But what you mentioned about his presence, Dan, I have to agree, and I put him up there with the likes of Jack Nicholson, who also has that presence. You know when he is playing a role, you just know it. Your eyes are just drawn to that actor who steals every scene that they're in, like John Belushi in the Blues Brothers. It's that moment when, yeah, you have got Dan Aykroyd, but nobody really watches it for Dan Aykroyd. You watch it for John Belushi's performance, which is just another level. And Tim Curry was that actor. You know, like in Pennywise, you could have had A-list actors alongside him, and he would have still stolen every scene. And a truly, truly generational talent. And I hate to say these terms that everybody generally says. Legend is an often overused word, but not in his case. He defines that word. If you looked up the word in the dictionary, and it was a pictorial dictionary, it would have his face next to that word. He was a wonderful, wonderful actor. And it's it's just such a shame that he's passed, because I do not think we will see his like again.
No, I agree. When I found it earlier, I was absolutely gutted. So absolutely gutted. I don't think I can add any more. I think what we said is very, very nice, and a nice celebration of him. So now we are going to move on to look at a little something a little bit closer. We're going to go under the scope. David, are you ready for this?
Oh, if you might, do I have to drop my trousers? I'm bent over.
No, it's after 9. It's after 9 o'clock.
That sort of scope, is it?
It's
No.
past the watershed, but we're going to go under the scope. Right, so David shows us our backup, but 2026 marks 35 years since James Cameron released Terminator 2. It's going back into cinemas for a 35th anniversary re-release now. A sequel which looked brilliantly simple. Science fiction, horror. It's the best. It's, Empire Strikes Back is, Godfather Part 2, Terminator 2. It's certainly in the list, isn't it, Dan, for the greatest sequels of all time at this point?
Yeah, I have to agree. And I think this is an example of where a trilogy works, or obviously this was the second in it, but I think not everything has. We've discussed this before. Not everything has to be a universe, and you can keep something self-contained within a trilogy. And I think T2 is just a wonderful bit of filmmaking, and it's clear that there was a vision for this, and it's not just trying to rinse something for all it's worth. It's trying to have a strong storytelling and strong filmmaking that justifies its presence. It's not just a marketing ploy by a studio. It's a wonderful bit of storytelling, and I absolutely agree. I'll always have an affection for Empire Strikes Back, but I think T2 is certainly up there.
So how brilliant is the decision to turn Arnie into the hero in this film, David, compared to what he was in the first one?
Well, being old, okay, it was a fantastic thing, because I remember, and I don't wish to shame you both, so I'll keep it nice. I remember the exact time and the fuss that this created when it came out. 1991 in August. I did my first trip to London by myself to stay with my uncle and his wife, my auntie, because he lived in West London. and it was a gorgeously hot August. That week I went down, and on the Monday, the 19th of August, 1991, I went to, which was his birthday as well, my uncle's birthday. Sadly, my uncle's no longer with us, but he took me to see the Doctor Who exhibition at the Museum of Moving Image on the South Bank, which was brilliant. And the Tuesday, we went into town, into the West End, and we wanted to go and see a movie. We wanted to go and see Terminator 2. And for those who don't know London, the Odeon there, massive screen in Leicester Square, was just shocker. The queue went all the way round Leicester Square to go and see the Terminator. And that was the only film it was screening all day, multiple screenings every day. And you just couldn't go and see it. You just could. It was like nothing on earth. So we ended up watching Naked Gun 2.5. And the next day, which was brilliant in itself, because we didn't know what we were watching. And it from about 10 seconds in, we realized it was a spoof comedy, and we laughed and laughed and laughed. The next day, we went in even earlier, and the queue was just the same. So we had to go and watch Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves. So after a few days in London, I made it back up here, and dying to see it on a massive cinema screen in Leicester Square. I ended up having to see it at our old rundown cinema with me mates right at the end of the end of the summer holiday, because it's the only time we could get in. And wow, honestly, the best film I have ever seen live.
Wow.
Ever. Because you get, oh God, it's who's this Terminator? Who's that Terminator? Wow, that's a bit weird. And then you see the panic on the face of Sarah Connor when Arnie turns up. And you just think, oh my God, there's two of them. And it turns out that Arnie is a good guy. And he plays such a good guy in this film. He is brilliant in this film. He's obviously been to acting school. He's obviously been, had better sort of acting skills. And he feels the scenes that he's in. And it's a lovely little quirk that he's been reprogrammed in the future to come back and save John and Sarah from the evil shape-shifting, which at the time we were going, how the hell have they done that? That's sort of like scenes we've never seen before in 1991. We've never seen those sort of special effects. Oh, he's never going to beat him, is he? An amazing film.
Yeah, I agree.
Love the feelings about it today.
Yeah. So should the Terminator franchise then, Dan, should have ended with T2? Because we've had Terminator 3, Salvation, Genesis, whatever that one with Matt Smith was. Dark Fate, Sarah Connor Chronicles. Do you think any of them add anything to it, really? Or so to just have Terminator 2 was perfect and it closes the story, so we should just leave it there instead of milking it to death?
I understand the impulse to look into it more because it is theoretically a really rich source of storytelling that you could get more from, but sometimes it's better just to leave it as this complete duo of films. You either do the 2 or the 3, and I think with this, T2 just beautifully sums it up. You've got the it's the yin and yang of Terminator, from the baddie to the goodie, and I have to agree with you, David. I think Arnold Schwarzenegger in this is just superb. He's just he's I don't know, there's something so endearingly intense but charismatic about his performance. And I think a brave director and a brave writer knows when to stop, Because when you've got that complete amazing storytelling, I mean, after that, I know James Cameron sort of took like a backwards producing role, but he hasn't directed it since, I don't think, or hasn't written any of them since. You can tell, because those two movies, those two films feel like the complete package penned by someone who's got the vision for that story. You lose it then if you pass it on.
So do you think Terminator 2 now feels more relevant in the current AI era, essentially? Is this something like, is Skynet gone from complete science fiction now to something audiences can at least conceptually imagine, David?
Have you seen those army of robots in China marching?
I've been watching the robot games as well. I've been watching them do the athletics, and it's so bizarre.
Hell is it? This is Skynet as we live. You know, this is the Pandora's box, and we are. And I don't want to be an alarmist, and I don't want to be like one of those professors on Newsnight, because I don't know a lot about it. But we are in danger of going past the point of no return. And I feel that Terminator 2 and Terminator gave us a glimpse very much before its time of fiddle around and find out, shall we just say. And this is as close a case of FAFO as you will ever get. It's a scary prediction, but it seems to be actually living out what they were talking about. And if we're not careful, you know, the robots will take over. You'll get an Attack of the Drones type situation to sort of meld two worlds together. And we might not have a liquid furnace nearby for enough robots to be able to get us out of this situation, because all the furnaces seem to be closing down. So we might find ourselves in a bit of a tricky situation. But this is the ultimate public safety announcement about do not develop something which may actually overthrow you. You know, it's like, do not use AI to find new viruses that might actually wipe you out by mistake. You know, it's a case of there's a line and just stick to the right side of the line. Doesn't stop progression.
The best sci-fi serves as entertainment as a warning, like you said, David. Yeah. But it also offers hope for humanity and shows us that, you know, even in the darkest days, humanity can come together, and you have a John Connor figure or a Sarah Connor figure. So even though the world is going down the proverbial toilet, you know, hopefully there's a message of hope, and we might see the best of humanity facing off against the T-800 or whoever it is.
Yeah.
I think going by the robot games in China, we got a fair way to go yet. But I think
no.
Oh no.
Don't count your chickens. Don't count your chickens. Did you see all those army of them walking?
No, I saw them running into bollards.
That's the bit that people laugh about. But there was a sort of like an army of them walking forward in complete unison, looking kind of menacing. And I just went back to Terminator 2. And I just thought, gosh, this scares the bejesus out of me.
It's doomsday all over again. We just need David Tennant and just to open the void up just to save us. But I think that's all we got time for tonight. It's been a running theme tonight again. Is should we just let things end? Is it needed to bring it back? Doctor Who, Ali G, and Tim Curry has left some incredible performances behind him as well. And obviously Terminator is back. But once again, David, I haven't seen you in a while, so thank you for coming on.
Lovely.
It's a pleasure to see you. And Dan, congrats on the footy. Star footballer in Manchester. Big up the Red. You're not a Red fan, are you?
No, I'm a Blackburn fan. But
we've got you at Sinsel Bank next Tuesday night.
Well, may the best team win, which probably won't be Blackburn.
Which will be you. because obviously we're newly promoted and Cardiff are out of the cup. But
we're just focusing on the league. Just focusing on the league. Hey, we got a draw against Wrexham. That's good for us. So yeah, once again, guys, cheers for coming on. And don't forget, you can have a look at all the other Standard Scope lives, or there is Hooligans to catch up on. I made War of the Worlds. I made the Time Machine. An interview with John Carley talking about how he became the War Doctor as well. Bill Fellows. Johnny Vegas, you name it, they're all there. Just go have a look on the Sound and Scope. Go see us talk about the Dalek Invasion of Earth 2150 AD. If not, we will see you this time next week. We'll see you at 7:30 next Wednesday. Apart from that, stay safe and see you soon.